Well, it is 11:01, so we will get started. Welcome all that are able to join us virtually here at the time of the meeting and those watching the recordings afterwards. We are very happy to have one of our own steering committee members, Thadd Sherer, EH&S Specialist 2 from Poet Biorefining in Marion, here today to talk to us about moving safety forward. What are some leading indicators and why tracking them is necessary to impact lagging indicators, giving frontline leaders the tools to shift cultures. This is again about how to make yourself have a culture of safety, and the culture of safety is definitely strong with Poet, and we're very happy to have Thadd here as one of our own local experts here to tell us about that. Before we do that, we'll have, well, I do want to shout out and thank those that have applied for the Lacey Award. We had some respondents to that, and we'll move forward with the inspections and then make our announcements of the winner here, I believe, in November. So thank you again for participating in that. Wednesday, October 6th, next month, there will be no Marion Area Safety Council. In lieu of, there will be one of BWC's mega safety council meetings for the entire all safety councils across the state, and that is Wednesday, October 6th from 11 to 12 p.m. I don't know if I'm stealing thunder away from Laura's announcements, but just wanted to point that out. And actually, I could have shared we'll share of course, the flyer for it if we haven't already. There's a link from the flyer directly to that. There's no pre-registration, so just tune in via that link on October 6th at 11, and that'll get you in. And that's it for me. I'll hand it over to Laura, our BWC rep, for any announcements from the BWC.
All right, thanks, Matt. Get my slideshow going. Okay. You guys can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Zoom is weird. I'm used to Teams, and I know that's probably vice versa for everyone else, that we have to use Teams with the state. Well, hi guys, September school has officially started for everyone. So just remember a quick announcement. I don't have it in my slides, but bus safety, understanding when to stop for buses, when not to, and watch out for those kiddos before and after school. I do have the slide for the mega meeting in October. We're going to have David Sarkis. He's going to be speaking, leading from your heart. Just like Matt said, there's just a link to join. So that's going to be from 11 to 12, Wednesday, October 6th. And we are going to have a welcome from our BWC administrator, Stephanie Mcleod. She recently came back to be our administrator and CEO of the BWC. She was pulled over to ODH, if you guys remember back when Dr. Amy Acton stepped down from leading ODH. Governor DeWine pulled over Stephanie Mcleod. And then she recently came back as our administrator. So she is going to be doing some welcoming remarks at the beginning of that meeting. Also, we have an upcoming webinar. So you had a claim, now what? It's a 2-hour webinar. It's going to be on September 14th. So that looks like it's next week. And we're just going to be discussing, what do you do now? We have a claim service rep, claim service specialist, employer service specialist, and a safety consultant, as well as our special investigation supervisors. So we're going to be discussing what your steps are, what you should be looking for when it comes to your claims management. And that's completely free, so feel free to register for that on our website. Just as a reminder, we do have 57 safety talks designed for safety leaders on our website. So if you guys do toolbox talks, or you're looking to start implementing maybe just once a week safety talk, we have 57. So that covers your entire year. Just download them from our website, print them off, and they'll give you information to review, questions, kind of mini training sessions that you can do with your groups every week, or how frequently you'd like to do those. Also, there's a deadline for the COVID Indoor Air Quality Assistance Program that is coming up on October 15th. So if you are eligible for that funding, definitely check out that assistance program. OSHA is looking for comments on their PowerPress standard. They're looking to finally update that. You can see it was first issued in 1971, and it is the federal government. So if you think the state government moves slow, the federal government moves even slower. If you have any comments about the updates that they want to do for the mechanical power press standard, those are needed to be submitted by October 26th. I'm going to put this PowerPoint in a PDF and send it to Matt to disseminate to you guys. So all these links should be active. Also, OSHA updated their safety handbook. It's actually really nice. I may have mentioned it last month because I think it did come out in August. But it's surprisingly a very user-friendly document from OSHA. So if you haven't checked it out, go ahead, download that. It's completely free. It's definitely one you want to look at. It's going to help you with your safety and health at your facilities. Oops. And just other news, this came from the BWC. Don't skip breakfast. I'm a big breakfast fanatic. I mean, if you say, Laura, you want to go to Bob Evans or Cracker Barrel, I am all over it. I love breakfast food. But they say, you know, skipping breakfast just kind of can throw off your whole day nutritionally. So just make sure that you guys are eating those healthy foods in the morning. Just again, this is from BWC Wellness. All right. And if you guys have any questions, you know, feel free to reach out. Again, we are able to come out as consultants again. So if you want like a wall-to-wall walkthrough, if you need an ergonomic assessment, if you need noise or air monitoring, just feel free to reach out. Even if you don't have John or Ben's information, I can get you their contact information. But yeah, we were able to come out and we're here to help, and I will pass it back to Matt.
Thank you, Laura. Some great updates. And of course, like she mentioned, we'll have all of that in the follow-up email to everyone here with links attached for everything that was just mentioned. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Thadd for the rest of our presentation. Unless I did put down the silo movie happening on September 12th at River Valley. Thadd, was that part of your?
Yeah, we were Poet and Poet Grains is part of sponsoring that, bringing that in for our first responders and our local farmers. Yeah, it's a great video, great movie for those of you who haven't seen it. It is available actually on Prime. I believe it's like $7 rental on Prime for about an hour and 15 minutes, but it's great.
Well,
yeah.
Over to Thadd.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here, make sure I've got the right one. And if you could give me a verbal feedback on that. Everybody see moving safety forward?
Yes.
All right, great. So appreciate the introduction, Matt. I'm the EHS specialist here and Poet Biorefining. So agriculture is very close to us. Thus the Silo movie, presenting that. And I know River Valley, or not River Valley, Ridgedale FFA. Chris Guthrie has been a big advocate for that. She's done a lot to actually put that program together. So really appreciate her. I've been here at Poet for since this plant opened. So I've been 2008, and I'm currently the EHS specialist. I been in this role a little over 7 years, almost 8 years actually. Actually, it has been 8 years at this point. So time flies when you're having fun. And really enjoy the opportunity to shift culture. You hear a lot about continuous improvement, and basically that's what safety is. Safety, if it's not its own little silo, so to speak, it has to influence everybody else's life around you, or else it's not. It can't be compartmentalized. So we just try to find ways to prevent safety from being compartmentalized here and incorporate it in everybody's daily and daily routines. So what I'm presenting here is kind of our journey, some of the materials that we've used on our journey here to see a safety culture improved here at Poet, and welcome interruptions. If anybody just say we've tried that and we've seen good things happen with that. I'd like this to be more of a participation discussion if that is of value to anybody listening. So just to make you aware of that. But with that, we'll go ahead and get into our information. So moving safety forward, moving it to the front lines, right? As long as everybody thinks that Thadd Sherer, the EHS specialist, is responsible for safety, then I'm only going to have so much of an impact. I can't be where everybody is. So we have to have buy-in at the front line level. And that means the people on the floor, the supervisors who are organizing and coordinating the work on the floor. And they have to have buy-in there to really try to influence our culture. Too often we spend a lot of time tracking lagging indicators. So what are lagging indicators? We'll get into that. And by the time we know what the lagging indicator is, it's too late to affect the performance of our team members. So we're trying to give frontline leaders the tools to shift culture, and we'll kind of go through some of that. What do we do here at Poet to do that? Kind of an outline. I'll kind of pass by that. So safety consciousness is the most important characteristic you can instill in your team, right? We're all here, that our business exists, being to make a product, to provide a product to the public, to make money and a profit off of that product, right? But if we can't do that safely, then we are not doing it responsibly, and we're not doing it and we're not creating the best value for our product, and we're not having the best return of our investment. So safety consciousness drives a lot of what we do here at Poet. I was going to play this clip. It's a funny clip. I think I did this presentation a couple years ago. Basically, Barney just pulled over Gomer for doing a illegal U-turn, and as soon as Barney is done, shuts his siren off and finishes filling out the ticket, he performs a U-turn to go the other way, and Gomer jumps out and claims citizens arrest, right? And arrests Barney and makes a big scene. And what that kind of shares a couple things, right? One is the gotcha moment. We walk up, we find somebody in the plant doing something possibly we'd consider inappropriate. Last thing we want to do is jump down their throats and gotcha, in a gotcha format, that gotcha consciousness. Find somebody doing something wrong, we have to immediately just get in their face. And we find that we have a lot more success if we come along beside someone and instead of confront them, maybe carefront them is a word that I'm using from a book that we've read here with our team. And we carefront them and just make sure the first thing that they understand is that we care about them, their well-being, and we would feel a lot better about their safety if they did it this way. So part of that safety consciousness is not just me being aware of my surroundings when I'm out in the plant, but it's also myself as an observer. How do I approach people when I find them performing an act that might not be done safely? So as we go through this, we're going to pick up on this consciousness that we really try to implement throughout every person here. Every person here at Poet is empowered to stop work. And they know that if they don't feel safe with the situation, they're empowered to stop work and to have we call it a huddle up, and have a discussion about what the activity is and why they don't feel safe. You could come through here today and ask any one of our team members if they believed truly that they could stop work. I feel fairly confident that they're going to give you a response that yes, they do. So safety consciousness is an awareness cultivated within your team through the intentional prioritization of safe behaviors. Changing behaviors changes the culture. So what are some of these behaviors that we want to change? Well, we all have to report our OSHA reportable injuries. It's a big part of my responsibility is OSHA recordable injuries. How many do we have each year? Bureau of Workers' Comp likes to, it's important numbers for them as they're invested in all of those injuries. Our OSHA citations, OSHA recordable case rate, the DART case rate, fatality rate. So these are all lagging indicators. By the time we have this information, it's too late for us to impact or change it, thus lagging indicators. Moving into our leading indicators, I'd like to just take a moment and talk about Heinrich's pyramid theory, where back in the 20s, this is really an old theory, but it still holds true today. Maybe not the numbers particularly, but the concept. He found that out of 300 unsafe acts, out of 3,000 unsafe acts, 300 of those were actual near misses. Some event occurred, somebody was almost injured. Out of those 300 near misses, 29 of those resulted in a minor injury, and one of them a serious injury or death. So we tend to get really upset about the serious injury or death in the minor injury. But if it was a near miss, too often we look at that as just being an unfortunate event. Oh, I was fortunate. We were fortunate that nobody got injured. But we don't want to just leave that information at that. We want to investigate that. We want to understand those near misses, why they happen, and what unsafe acts or behaviors or conditions in the environment led to those. And so that's where we spend a lot of our time here at POET. We spend a lot of our time looking into those areas. So we've moved from the lagging indicator of that injury or that death that already occurred, and instead of just doing a routine or root cause analysis on an injury, we want to find out what existing conditions do we have, physical conditions in the plant, and maybe thought processes or belief systems or behaviors we have in our team members that are leading to these injuries. Excuse me, I have to get a drink. So this kind of lays out a little bit more. Lagging indicator, the measurement of a result that you are trying to achieve. The leading indicator is a measurable indicator that is predictive and influenceable. So if we track leading indicators, it will ultimately affect our lagging indicator. So just learning to focus on those things. By the time you get the data of a lagging indicator, it's already happened. So our total recordable incident rates, our DART rate, or lost time incident rate, those are things that have already occurred. We can't impact those. But if we start thinking, okay, what unsafe conditions, whether it be behavior or an actual condition of the facility led to that incident? What near miss reporting, what things can I look at in advance? And to help this, we've added a few things, spot checks. I'm sure many of you are familiar with spot checks. But for a spot check to be successful, once again, we have to communicate that it's not a gotcha moment, right? Too often we're looking for opportunities to just, I shouldn't say too often, but we've kind of got stuck in this mindset that if I find somebody doing something wrong, I need to somehow scare that behavior out of them. And we found that to be successful, the first thing we can communicate to them is that we care about them. Once again, changing that confrontation to care fronting. Come up beside them and making sure, hey, you know what? I'm here to do a spot audit. I'd really like you to make me smart on what you're doing here, rather than making them feel like, oh, all eyes are on me right now, and I better do this right. We have an opportunity to discuss what they're doing, why they're doing it the way they're doing it, and make it more of a dialogue. Other thing is safety discussions. We track. So these are all four things that we're tracking, four of the things that we're tracking. Safety discussions. Laura, you mentioned the talk sheets. I believe we've actually downloaded a lot of those, and we save them on a local file here for our supervisors and our team members to actually use as a resource for them to do a daily safety talk during shift exchanges. We encourage them to do their own, but we also make resources like yours available for them to to have resources to share for their safety talks. So those are things that we're tracking. We track how many safety discussions our team members are performing, and that's each individual. And so I'll show you some of the tools that we use. And once again, if anybody has a question on anything that I'm discussing, feel free to interrupt. A lot of this isn't new. It's just kind of what we're doing here at Poet, and the idea that it's a continuous improvement. You're just continuously finding ways to move safety forward in your organization. Just mitigating potential incidents is not enough, right? So just if I find something in the field that's a hazard, a hose laying across the walkway, I can pick that up. But what happens if that hose just keeps laying across the walkway? Well, I got to find a way to address the behavior as well. And one of the things that I thought was pretty interesting is this idea of just selling leading indicators and why they're important. Coaches use this philosophy all the time. They have to find measurable statistics that impact the game as it is going. You have to find measurable activities that impact your performance on a daily basis, and you have to target those and be very specific about those. And so the idea of an NFL football team wanting to win the Super Bowl, that's their goal. Okay, we're all excited. We want to win the Super Bowl. We want to have a winning season. We want to make it to the playoffs. A better goal, but still not theirs. We want to win the game, because if we win games, then we're going to make it to the playoffs, and then we'll win the Super Bowl. Or, well, to win a game, I have to outscore my opponent, right? So we're drilling down our goals here to make them more specific, but they're still lagging. They still don't help our performance during that actual activity. And so if you shift over to the right, you see the time of possession. These are leading indicators, measurable indicators that is predictive and influenceable and directly influenced by our team. So, offense, time of possession, the more we hold onto the ball, the less likely the other offense is going to have it, right? Our QB yards per attempt, how successful is our quarterback in passing? Why is that happening? Why or why not are we having success there? Coaches are looking at that stuff all through the game. Is their wide receiver catch rate? What's their catch rate? Are they just drop balls? Is somebody not running a pattern correctly? Are we being double teamed? Running back yards per carry. What's the success? It's being real-time monitored. To have success as a football team, you have to have these indicators that you are monitoring real time. So just another attempt for me to try to prioritize and show people how important it is for these leading indicators. So Granger has put some of these slides together to help determine. I stole these from Granger, which is a nice website for safety as well. These leading indicators, near misses, behavioral observations, training records. Although training records are somewhat lagging, we all know we have to have so many OSHA topics that we train on each year. Department safety meetings, those are really, really good. Did not exist here at Poet 3 years ago. So that's something that we've driven here in the last year or two. And I'd like to say that has done more for the buy-in of our culture than just the tracking behaviors. So we'll talk more about that. Employee perception surveys. We just had one completed by our team that we just passed out last month. We want feedback. We want to know how we're doing at communicating our care about you, about our team members. Trainee scores on post-training quizzes, preventative maintenance programs, which is very, very, very important. And people don't often associate that with safety. But the better you manage your equipment, the less downtime you have on your equipment, the less opportunities you have for team members to be injured. especially if it's unscheduled downtime. That typically introduces a rushing mentality and frustration. And anytime you have team members who are operating in frustration or rushing, greatly increases the likelihood of an accident. So in 2015, the National Safety Council had a survey out. So some things that we can kind of compare ourselves to. And I ask you, don't have anything other to say about this, no comments about this, but it was something that I just kind of looked at to see, all right, how well are we doing here? Training, are we 86%? I mean, so most employers reported that, at least the ones in the survey. So these would be people who belong to the National Safety Council. 86% of them said that they were tracking their training, right? 81% of them said that they're tracking employee audits and observations. We don't have a number on how many or quantity, but this is just something for us to look at as employers to see how are we doing with these items. Safety meetings, 78% of them are having safety meetings. That's probably a safety committee meeting. Facility housekeeping. So there's some kind of probably a 5S program and a housekeeping program. Participation in safety committee meetings. Tracking, probably have a sign-in sheet. That might be as simple as a sign-in sheet. Effective safety committee meetings. We've really spent some time here recently to impact the effectiveness of our safety committee meetings. So I'll be getting into that here in a little bit later. Overall employee engagement and safety. So 54% are tracking that. Equipment, machinery maintenance, 50%. Once again, love to see equipment and machinery maintenance in a safety discussion. It's all related.
And back to, I guess, the second from the bottom, the overall employee engagement and safety being so low. I'm assuming that for Poet, at least, that's kind of where you've identified an important aspect of your safety culture is to engage and
Yeah.
safety. And that would be for you folks very much higher, I guess, or you count yourself as
Correct.
percent. It's just interesting that only half of those that businesses that were part of this wasn't. I feel like that would be a simple yes to say, yeah, we engage all of our employees in safety, to see that they were at least honest in saying half of them said no. It's very low.
You know what, Matt? And that's one thing that as we move through our slides, so when you're presenting slides on your tracking on your something that you do in-house, right? You want to go through and pick your best month. So people think, man, they're really knocking this out of the park. Well, I just picked our August slides and they show vulnerabilities. They show, hey, but that's the whole point in tracking, right? That's the whole point of tracking, is not to pat yourself on the back and say, hey, yeah, we did all this. It's because, you know what? Sometimes you have an unexpected shutdown and now you've got team members who are rushing around doing a job, doing more maintenance than what they were intended to do, or cleaning up more messes, and that becomes frustrating, right? And so I love the transparency that seems to be depicted in that 54%, because it's necessary. We have to be, we want our numbers to be real and authentic, or else we're really not changing culture. We're just meeting a metric, and so metrics are important as long as they're authentic. So I'm glad you pointed that out. So what are some of the leading indicators for our organization? I took this slide from the National Safety Council. I compiled this slide from them. Actually Granger, I guess, but that information is actually from the National Safety Council. These are pretty basic concepts about goals. Your metrics have to be measurable and actionable. You want to set goals that are obtainable, things that your people can actually do, meaningful. That means if you actually hit these metrics, it's going to influence the culture that you're looking to, or make the changes that you're looking to make. Metrics that are clearly understandable, transparent, easy to communicate, relative, valid, useful, and timely. So just a slide I left in here. If you're looking to make improvements, or looking to track or develop some metrics to help influence your safety culture, those are some good key steps to use. How do we decide what activities we want to establish? Well, we want them to become second nature, or habits is kind of what we've called it here. And a habit is made up of 3 components: the cue, the routine, and the reward. I'm not going to get into it, but Tony Dungy turned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers around. So Tampa Bay Buccaneers had a turnaround here last year, right? But Tony Dungy did it back in 1996, and between 96 and 2001, he turned them around. Talks about how he changed the habits and the response of his defense to impact that change. It's a really good read. I'm not going to get into it too much more here because I got some more information, but it's in the slide if you want to follow the link. So here's what we did at Marion. And we've kind of changed this up. We tracking unsafe conditions. We want 1 unsafe condition reported each month, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if that unsafe condition requires a work order for somebody in maintenance to complete, that means you've had 60, because we have 60 employees here, 60 new work orders that are generated for work to be completed that wasn't necessarily directly related to production, right? So when you first start doing this, your maintenance team is focused on keeping equipment running, preventative maintenance, and now all of a sudden you're throwing out additional work orders that are just because you want to do this safety objective. Sometimes it isn't looked at, it isn't welcomed, but ultimately over time, the more you shine the light on safety, you realize the value in those preventative maintenance. And so it kind of, were people pencil whipping some of those work orders and preventative maintenance, or were they doing it thoroughly? And that's where the continuous improvement of safety kind of illuminates some of those things and brings to light some of those things that may have been occurring or may not have been occurring. We found that with 60 new work orders being generated, that was a little bit too much. And so what we did is, you'll see the gold standard mitigation there, the top right box on this side. We asked team members if they found something in the field that was an unsafe condition. We wanted at least half of our unsafe conditions that were reported to be fixed immediately. So we asked them to fix those immediately and report that they did so. So that kind of reduced the amount of work orders. It helped people to take care and remove the hazard immediately. And we've seen a success. We've maintained a 50%. That's one of the things that we typically hit. I think August was the first month this year that we didn't hit a 50% mitigation of our unsafe conditions that we reported. We want each team member to perform a spot audit. And so last year, 2 years ago, we were tracking how many spot audits were completed each month. And if we have 60 employees, we were knocking out sometimes 60, 70 of these things a month. But then we found out that our tracking tool wasn't tracking each person individually. It was just tracking a number. And so we found out that maybe 20% of our team members are actually completing all of these spot audits. So we've changed our tools around to better track and to give us true metrics. And so you'll see that here as I move on. Team member led safety discussions. I don't know if you're in a situation where you work, but as soon as people start talking about safety, do you look around the room and do people start checking out? Do they, okay, I got to get to work. I guess we just got to get this safety discussion done with. before we can get on with what we really need to do. So we know that as long as Thadd is always the person leading the safety discussion, that's more likely for that to occur, or else I have to keep being more creative, and that gets painful. So we really drove safety discussions down to our frontline team members. You know, we want them to participate. We want them to lead discussions. And it's more relevant then if they come back at the shift exchange and they talk about something that happened during the day that is very likely and very relevant to the rest of the team. They're gonna like, yeah, that's really aggravating when that happens. I'm glad you pointed it out. I'm glad you shared how you dealt with that. So we really tried to drive team member safety discussions. And once again, like the unsafe condition reporting, a lot of times people are very uncomfortable talking in front of a group, you know, even a small group of 10 people in a shift exchange. There's some of us who just, it's uncomfortable for us to do that. So there's obstacles, but we just keep encouraging and keep driving and keep the metrics up. And maybe we don't hit our metrics, but we have ways of comparing one team to another that drives performance. Permit completion, you know, our maintenance team and our operations team, they have to complete lockout tagouts, confined space entries. They have to do hot work permits. We don't want these permits just to be something that they complete because it's a requirement. We want them to use them as a tool. We tell them that these permits are a tool to slow them down, to help them take the time to identify what could go wrong and to anticipate that. And so we've shifted that thought about these permits as being an obstacle to them getting their work done, which I think many of us have been in an environment or a culture that's what permits were perceived as, an obstacle to actually getting the work done in a timely manner, to being a tool to slow us down intentionally to make sure I go home the same way I showed up. And JHAs in the bottom right, we're tracking those job hazard analysis. Those go along with each of our permits. So we're tracking those with the same mentality. It's intentionally designed to slow me down. And these are very important to our culture, especially at our facility. We have a continuous process here at Poet. So if something goes wrong at the front end of our process, it will disrupt the rest of the process down the road. Those things that'll happen 12 hours from now. And so our team understood this, and they wanted to get out into the field really quick and respond quickly and get these things changed so they wouldn't have the effect later down the road. But when people react out of urgency and stress and feel rushed, often they make poor decisions. So we gave them the permission to realize, you know, let's stop this process. We can stop this. There are methods that we can use to slow this down so we don't have guys rushing into the field. And so we've kind of created these JHAs to force our team members to not just respond, but to slow down, think through what they're doing intentionally. So these are all things that we value here at Poet, and that's why we track them. Not really going to discuss this slide. This was basically the book, 4 Disciplines of Execution. It's a Covey book. Great tool on how to implement your tracking metrics. So I'm not going to say anything more about it. Now, here's what we're doing at Poet. We're tracking month to month. I just put one slide up there. This one's for our unsafe conditions and our near misses. You can see that we're hitting a good level. We have 60 employees. In August, we had 85 unsafe conditions and near misses reported. You'll see there in July, and we were low. We missed our target. We also missed our target in January. So we don't gloss over. We just look at it. What's the real numbers? What improvements do we need to make? And even though 85 looks great for August, let's take a look at the next slide. Oh, hold on, I'm going to jump down through here. So this slide is related to the unsafe conditions and near misses. You can see each department here. So we even put our general manager and our plant manager who's on the call on the spot, right? Every department is responsible for unsafe conditions and near miss reporting. And so you can see here that we're looking at how each team's doing. And the total on this is no longer the 85 that we saw on our previous slide. It's the 29 because we've started tracking individual team members who reported. So we had 29 team members who reported unsafe conditions and reported those 85. So these 29 people are responsible for those 85 unsafe conditions that we reported. Once again, we're showing each department compared to other departments what the dark line would be their goal for the number of team members in their department, and the light colored line would be the number of team members that completed. So you'll see here the lab is the only team during the month of August that everyone completed their unsafe conditions. And so you could look at this and say, man, you guys really are not hitting your goal. But you know what? At least we know that. We know that, and we can keep working towards it. It's continuously moving forward. Some of the other things that we're tracking, I'll go back. August correct permits. Yes, our managers who close out the lockout tagout permits, the confined space permits, they're reviewing those to make sure their team members filled them out accurately. And you can see that we had a couple permits on A shift and B shift that were not filled out correctly. Why is this important? Well, this is all self-reporting, right? They're not just fudging this so they look good on a report. They're being honest about, and they're being transparent, because we've created a culture here that people don't have to just report good numbers. We want to be authentic because we only get better when we're authentic. Permit hazard analysis. How many permits have we completed with our Army hazard analysis? JHAs have we completed with our permits? So this is only in the last 3 months have we seen consistently where we've completed a JHA with each permit. At the beginning of the year, we were maybe hitting 50%. So this is, we're not looking just to make the numbers say what we want them to say. We want them to be authentic. So we know where we need to focus our attention. We already talked about unsafe conditions and near misses, mitigated unsafe conditions. So this, out of 85 unsafe conditions reported, only 29 of them. So our goal is 50%. So we did not hit our goal with mitigating unsafe conditions. Spot completions. How many of us have performed spot audits? Well, it shows that some of our departments, all of our departments completed spot audits, but only 15 people completed spot audits. Our goal is what? 60, right? Because we have 60 team members here. So we know that we've got a ways to go and this was a really bad month for us. I believe the previous month we were closer to 40 or 35 team members actually completed spot audits. So August was a rough month for that. But that's real data. It helps us know, okay, guys, what was going on? What do we need to look at? Why were we low on our spot audits last month? And this one's a really interesting one, safety discussions. Like I said, this can be a shift exchange, be during any other meetings that you have. We actually consider a safety discussion if a couple of guys, 3 guys are looking to start a line break here. We have a lot of hazardous chemicals on site. Sulfuric acid, 93%. So if you're looking to do a line break on 93% sulfuric acid, I mean, you get that on you, it's going to melt your face off, right? So we'll have a huddle up. These guys will develop a safety plan. They're going to work through their job hazard analysis. They're going to work through their line break permit. They're actually going to draw a line of this section of this line. They're going to draw a picture of this line that they're actually going to break. They're going to complete their lockout tagout permit. And if they've had a huddle up and a discussion about this, we want them to record that and track that as a safety discussion, because that's what they're doing. It's valuable, and we want to celebrate that. So we had 38 people who led safety discussions last month. Well, you might think, dang, that's 20 off, of your goal. Yeah, but you know what? It's 90% more than what we had 2 years ago when we weren't tracking it. And as we have people talking about this stuff, safety has become more a part of our culture. And then that just starts infiltrating regular decisions that team members are making. So I want to pause here just for a second. That's kind of what we've been doing. We've decided to take it to the next level. Matt, what was it? It was like 2 years ago now when Sika brought in Mike Desgranges from Sika brought in his safety committee, right? And he made the announcement that everybody at their facility was on the safety committee. And I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. As an EHS specialist, you get really excited about that kind of stuff. So I thought we got to do something like that here with our shifts being, we have various different shifts, 12-hour shifts, 8-hour shifts. Some people working just days, some people working just nights, some people working what's traditionally considered a second. So trying to bring everybody together, what we did was we just went back to those departments, each one of those departments that we saw. And right here, each one of these departments has become a safety team. And they are responsible to have their own meeting each month and discuss their performance on all of our metrics. They discuss their performance. They do a safety walkthrough. They have an area of the facility each month that's different that they walk through, and they look for unsafe conditions. They mitigate unsafe conditions, and they discuss those. And then what they do is that as we come back together as a safety committee once a month, then they will bring any concerns that kind of floated to the top. Something that they as a team believe that, this is valuable enough that we need to share this with the safety committee, or this is a concern that we have that we'd like to discuss as a corporate wide or as a plant wide concern. So that's kind of what these safety teams have become. They each send representatives to our safety committee, and they report on their metrics. They report on their unsafe, what's the most significant unsafe condition that they've had. Why they didn't meet their goals, why they did hit their goals, what was different from the previous month. Each team shares their most concerning unsafe condition. We talked about that. And we talked about their walkthrough. So that's kind of what we've just continuing to improve our safety culture, and really just continue to move safety forward. The other part of that, oh, did you have a question?
How long do those meetings typically last, or how long do you let them last, I guess? Monthly?
Okay, so yeah, that's a good point, because Aaron can attest, he's on the call, that our safety committee meeting can easily drag into an hour and a half, 2 hours. And my general manager said, hey, look, I love the participation that we're getting and the feedback that we're getting, but we're definitely taking up too much time. And sometimes we get into the weeds the more time we allow. So we have a very clear document that we send out to each team for them to report on. And so everybody they follow that document, and they report on that document. So that kind of helps us keep it within a manageable amount of time. And then we may have to, if they have a concern that they would like to discuss, we will circle back around to that at the end of the meeting, just to make sure we stay within that hour. Now, the individual meetings, that's up to the manager or the supervisor for that team. I know our maintenance manager, he looks for a good reason to have lunch. So, he likes to, so he'll buy lunch and have his whole team come into our cafeteria and small break room, whatever. And they'll have their safety discussion during lunch on their own. You know, other teams, our shifts, our operation, there's 4 shifts in our operations team, and it's probably more easy. It's easier for them while they're all together in the control room to just catch a moment and discuss that, right? So it just looks different. That's the nice thing about doing it this way, is each manager, supervisor can adapt it to what fits their routines.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Continuing to move safety forward. So we really, I mentioned earlier, trying to move safety to the front line, frontline team members, our frontline leaders. So what we've done here, we've spent some time providing tools to help them with their team accountability. You know, not only this, so all the tracking tools that we're using here. I can't go back, but you notice how we list each of the departments, each of the different departments. Basically, they can look at that and say, how are we doing compared to this other team? You know, why is D shift half as much as A, B, and C shift? You know, so we've provided tools for them to use to have conversations with their team to say, hey, what's going on here? And that's that also, we might have a regional manager come, and they might see, they'll see our tracking information, right? And they might ask that question. So our managers have sometimes been put on the spot, or our supervisors have been put on the spot and say, why is your data so much different than, and they don't want that to happen. So that helps generate this accountability, this really self-accountability just by having the program. We expect the supervisors to lead safety culture of their team, safety discussions, living the safety culture. Where here in the next month, we're going to send them to a full day safety leader training for our supervisors. And our general manager led a safety discussion. And I really recommend this book to anybody listening. Safety Walk, Safety Talk by David Galloway. He's from Dayton area, Troy area, I believe. That's where I got the term care fronting, priming. You know, these are just a really well done book. I have some more information that we can move into, but I don't know how relevant it is. So I didn't know if, Aaron, I was going to let you say, you know, just contribute if you felt like there's any need to, or if anybody had any questions.
There was one question in chat, but I'll let Aaron start first.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. I think you did a good job with the presentation, kind of summarizing kind of where we're at, where we're going. I'd be open to any questions that anybody has. I'm excited about getting our supervisors to really be these frontline leaders. I think that's an exciting shift in our culture. I think it's paying dividends. So, but yeah, I'm open to any questions that anyone would have.
From the chat, it says, can you elaborate more on the effect that PMs have on positive safety culture and how it benefits the company to have these things done?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so I wish I had, I could gather some data on that. But so being a PSM facility, you know, process safety management facility, we have a lot of mechanical integrity that we have to maintain just because we are monitored by OSHA, right? But the benefits, we have seen a culture shift here at Marion where we have had a period of time over the 13 years where preventative maintenance was lacking. Just to say, you know, I don't, and it really was from, we're talking 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And it just may have been the circumstances as well that led to some of that. So not to get into that, but we've lived through a period when preventative maintenance was lacking. And so what happens then obviously if preventive maintenance is not being performed, you have equipment failure. And when equipment fails, it's clear as to why it failed. We had a breaker fail, a 4160 volt breaker fail, and it was likely due to poor maintenance. So that took part of our system down for 3 months. All right, that's a lot of money lost due to that. You can be, yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, the other thing I would just add is that, when you look at our injuries over the last probably 3 years, I would say well over half of them took place during downtime events, right?
That's a good point.
So that kind of leads us to the point where if we're properly taking care of the equipment, we're maximizing uptime. When we have downtime, especially at a biorefinery, it can be very chaotic. Not only bringing the plant down, but bringing the plant online creates a lot of opportunity for incidents to occur. So that's been my major focus on PMs is let's make sure that we have equipment that the team can depend on that's going to keep us running, and we can schedule those downtime events rather than having to react to a downtime event.
Yeah, I know there are manufacturers in our area that are working with some old equipment too, right? And that's a struggle because you can only PM a 50-year-old piece of equipment so much, at some point, and you have to replace that. And that's just, those are business decisions, but they all directly affect safety.
I'm going to not lead you through a question here, but I'm assuming that when you're making a major culture shift change in terms of safety, that you wouldn't want to be discouraged if it doesn't change immediately, that it takes time to kind of tweak and figure out what's going to work best for the individual plan. And what's working at POET doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to carbon copy work for another organization, but I guess I'm assuming that you would suggest sticking with it and seeing, or at least being flexible, but also sticking with it to a certain extent. How long did it take?
Yeah.
How long did it take POET to kind of feel like
change is never easy, right? I don't even know that we're happy with where we're at right now. It's a constant evolution and constant continuous improvement. So yeah, I think it goes back to one of our kind of culture statements is that we're never satisfied. And I don't know that we'll ever be satisfied on the safety front until we've met that goal of 0 team members injured. It's a constant evolution.
So we've been doing target 0 now, or using these tracking metrics for 3 years now, Aaron, I believe. And we've not moved off of our 2 injuries a year, and hopefully by saying that, I'm not inviting another one, but what we have seen is a reduction in the severity of our injuries. It's something that we have clearly seen. And ultimately that is our goal, right? So you see that target 0 in the behind my head, but it's not the metric of 0. We want 0 team members injured, and that it's caring. It's truly having a culture that cares about your team and them believing that you care about them, right? It's one thing for us to say, yeah, I love you, man, but to say I care about you, and to really want people to go home the same way they show up, that is looking somebody in the eye and telling them that, right? And Aaron and our management team here do care, and they do a very good job at communicating that to our team, and that makes all the difference.
I guess one thing I'll add, Matt, to kind of your first point there was that I don't think that this would be a carbon copy situation probably for anybody, but I think what's important is that you understand what leading indicators are for your site or your facility, and then track those leading indicators. I think that should be the takeaway, not necessarily that, well, you need to track unsafe conditions and near misses or PIV inspections necessarily, but find what those leading indicators, take a look at your injuries over time and find those things that are that correlate. And that's one of the things that our Target Zero team did, was they looked at our injuries over the last several years and, okay,
Yeah.
why do we have these? And so that's why we picked the leading indicators that we did. So certainly it's not going to be carbon copy, but I would strongly encourage everyone to figure out what those leading indicators are at your facility and then start tracking those. That should be the takeaway.
Excellent answer there. My last question, I guess, you mentioned, looks like on some of the slides, Maximo, Knowledge Lake, OneNote, safety discussion, leader tracking forms. I'm not fully in this industry. Is that something that everyone else on here would be nodding their heads going, oh, I know about all of those? Or is those kind of things you folks have stumbled upon or built in-house, or what's?
So
Yeah,
a lot
Maximo,
of that is, yeah, go ahead.
Maximo's Maximo's an enterprise software. So that's what we use to generate all of our PMs and work orders. There's SAP, there's a number of them out there. So you could replace Maximo with SAP or whatever kind of enterprise software that your facility would be using for things like inventory tracking and work order tracking. We use IBM Maximo, which allows for that integration of inventory tracking and work order tracking kind of all in one software package.
We have one more question in the chat. When do you reevaluate your target reports due to people being more careful and not as many potential incidents occurring? And he says, sorry if this came up earlier.
So we are meeting typically on a monthly basis, our Target Zero team, just to evaluate each month. And we try to encourage. So what we might do is, we don't do this every month, but we might, if we're lacking, like you saw on some of what we were lacking on our mitigated unsafe conditions, right? We had 85 unsafe conditions and we only had 29 of them mitigated immediately. So for October, we might say, you know what? The team that completes more than 60% of their mitigated unsafe conditions will buy lunch for them, right? So we would do a little challenge, something like that. We're constantly reevaluating those things. And then each year we might change up the program significantly. Like we stopped tracking the number of unsafe conditions and we started tracking the number of people that reported unsafe conditions, right? So that's more of an annual review that we do, but we do look at the data each month and try to create some kind of a mechanism, whether it be a fun challenge to get people to improve those performance. I don't know if that helps, Tom, or not.
You got a thanks from him, so it must. With that, we're out of time. Thad and Aaron, thank you so much again for sharing Poet's experience with safety culture. Great presentation again, as always. And all of this will be available after this meeting, along with the recording. And then if anything else that Thad wants to share, links to anything, we'll have that with that as well. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us, either live here today or on the recording. And we will see you all back in November, because again, the October one is with everyone in the state here for the mega safety council meeting. So we'll see you all again in November. And thank you again, Thad and Aaron. Have a great day.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.